Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where we have another episode brought to you by DLT Trading. Check them out for all of your knife and EDC needs. And today, we're going to be taking a look at none other than the LionSteel TRE. Now, this is not a new knife by any means. This has been out since, I believe, since 2015. So, it's been out on the scene for a while. So some of you may have probably already heard about it, but I have never really been too familiar with this knife, and I thought it looked pretty attractive. It was a nice size. It's a sub 3-inch blade, so that always kind of stands out to a bigger market, especially for people living in the bigger cities with more stringent knife laws. So I thought this one was really interesting. It also has a pretty big award tied to its name, which we'll touch on here in just a second as well. And we're going to get right into this. Before I do that, though, if you guys like what you're seeing on my channel, do me a huge favor. If you're not subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. Now, let's take a look at this knife right here. Let's start with some specs. We have an overall length of 6.875 inches with a blade length coming in at 2.875 inches, a cutting edge right around the same 2.875 inches with a blade width coming in at 0.87 inches. We have a blade thickness on this stack here of 0.14 inches with a blade material of M390 with a drop point style blade, a flat grind, a 4-inch handle length with a handle thickness coming in at 0.48 inches and a handle width of 0.88 inches. The handle material on this guy is carbon fiber with titanium on the lock side and a locking mechanism of a frame lock with a very solid lockup indeed. And the user, right or left hand tip-up carry. So yes, for you lefties, this is completely, well, almost completely ambidextrous. Very, very nice option for you guys out there. A total weight of 2.37 ounces, so it's a very light knife. And for the price, I have a couple prices I thought it was worth noting. On Blade HQ, you can pick this guy up for $272.99. But if you click the link below in this video from DLT, you can pick it up for $264.95. So always nice to get a little bit of a better deal. And you're also doing business with a pretty good company up there in Wisconsin, being DLT. Now let's take a look at some size comparisons here and see just what size knife we're working with here. We have the model 1929 from Finch, as well as one that everybody knows, the Civivi Elementum. Is there anyone out there that doesn't have a Civivi Elementum? I'm sure there are, but it seems like everyone has one. As you can see, very, very close in length and overall size to the Elementum, so a very good reference point there. And then we also have two more, just to throw a couple other models up here. We have the LionSteel Luna Boost, as well as the Giant Mouse Ace Biblio, little decked out version here. And there you have that. As you can see, very close in length to these two knives as well. So some pretty good size comparisons for you there. And now let's get to talking about this knife, because it is a very interesting one that has a pretty glamorous road of fame here. This knife won Blade of the Year, or Knife of the Year at Blade Show in 2015. So, yes, it's been around for a while, but if you win Knife of the Year at Blade Show, it's got to be a pretty darn good knife. And when I saw that, I thought, you know what? I've got to take a closer look at this. The TRE, that's also something you'll want to know. The TRE stands for 3 Rapid Exchange, and that means there's basically, well, there's actually 4, but we're going to, for the purpose of the name, we're going to go with 3 ways to carry this knife. You can carry it with, what they call nude, so it doesn't have the thumb stud up here, and it doesn't have the flipper tab. As you can see, the flipper tab can come off with the screw, as well as the thumb stud here. So you can carry it nude without either, or you can carry it with just the flipper tab, or you can carry it with the thumb stud. And then for some reason, I don't know why they call it 3 and not 4, but for the 4th way, you can carry it with the flipper and thumb stud, which is what I did because I'm all about multiple deployment options for my knife. I always think that is a very good thing to have. So I've got both of them on here for the demonstration. But the whole meaning behind the 3 Rapid Exchange is you can rapidly exchange them. And what you can do that with is the tool it comes with. It comes with some very impressive packaging. You have this wooden box here, and inside is where the knife is, and little places to put everything. And you have this tool, which is a very, very nice little tool. I gotta say, this is a pretty impressive little thing here. So what you do is you just find the bit that fits, and you just stick it in there, and it even, you use the key ring as a form of torque and, extra tension to screw and unscrew the bits on. So that's pretty cool. So they give you a tool, they give you a really nice box to put it in. I'm gonna leave both of these on for the review because I think it's the best way to present this knife and show everything it's capable of. I do have a preference that I will hit on as we move through the review, but now let's get into the actual aspects of the knife and go through my regular review process, starting with the blade. And it is somewhat of a simple drop point blade, but it's also a very interesting blade design along the spine. You have kind of this harpoonish swedge up here that looks pretty cool, and then you also have that slight crowning on the spine that you see with a lot of Italian knives, which is always very attractive. But unfortunately, you have something else that we see all too often on Italian knives, and that is a thick edge. The edge reading on this guy is coming in at 28 thousandths, so just really not that impressive, especially when you consider the shorter blade width of 0.88 inches, or was that 0.8? Yeah, 0.87 inches on the blade width. That you just don't have a lot of height to, the cutting geometry isn't ideal, I guess is what I'm saying. But it does still cut. You can still do some work with this knife. And on the positive side, what you have is a very strong blade. With that 0.14 inch blade stock and M390 steel, you do have a very strong blade, and you have a good tip that can do a decent amount of digging and whatever you need to do with it with a strong tip. So that is very nice. When it comes to the flipper tab and the thumb stud, I do definitely prefer the flipper tab on this guy, and I will show you why when we get to the action. But the flipper tab works very nice, and the thumb stud is, it's there. Maybe after some breaking in, it would be more effective. But yeah, we'll get there when we get to the action. We'll hit more on that. Really not much else to say about this blade. It's just a simple drop point with a, unfortunately, pretty thick edge. And pretty nice tip to work with, though, I will say. If this is something that you would use to just break down a bunch of boxes and, do simple cutting tasks and whatnot with, this would be fine. It's just not something you want to carry for any, if you do a lot of, slicing or any real precise cuts throughout the day. So, kind of an average blade. But when you get into the ergos and the actual handle itself, it is definitely above average. The ergos are pretty darn good on this guy. I always appreciate a smaller knife that gives me a full 4-finger grip, and this is a very comfortable full 4-finger grip. You have contouring along the carbon fiber as well as the titanium side, and you also have some very, very attractive milling really all over this guy, from the lock bar to the rest of the handle to the clip. You have different types of milling that add for a little extra grip and also gives it a nice little touch of extra pleasing aesthetics, which I always like to see. And as you saw during the spec rundown, you have a very solid lockup with this guy. You also have a nice lock bar insert and over travel stop. So this knife is very durable. It's built really well. One thing that kind of annoys me, and again, this is purely aesthetic and purely nitpicking, but for $264, when you get into a price point like that, that's very annoying that they the misalignment of the print there on this guy on the pivot. I don't think these even really need that. I mean, it's just showing that it has bearings and that's how it goes, and it's kind of, it really doesn't need to be there in my opinion. But again, we're talking a knife from 2015. Things have the knife industry has come a long, long way from 2015. So kind of have to keep that in mind. But still, we're kind of nitpicking there, worth mentioning. But then the rest of this handle is just very, very solid. I really like how they did this lock bar access and just the whole design of it. Very attractive. It looks good. It feels good. And it works good. It breaks it very easily, and you can shake the blade shut pretty easily for a smaller blade. It is a pretty smooth knife. I will definitely give it that. Going into the action, as you just saw, the flipper tab on this guy works very, very good. You can light switch it, and then you can also push button it, which is what I prefer. You guys know I don't need to keep explaining myself on that. I just prefer push buttoning a flipper as long as I can, and this one works very, very well. It's broken in really well over the handful of days I've had it, and it is something I do enjoy flipping this knife. Now, when it comes to this thumb stud, I really wanted it to work better than it did. It's not a complete fail, but this is the problem. That lock bar there, you really, really have to watch the pressure you put on that. I kind of put my fingers down on the side of the clip here and make sure I'm not touching the lock bar. And then you can, it's still tough. It's just not the best. You can middle finger flick it like that. But again, if I own this knife, I would probably not have the thumb stud on it. As you can see, once you get used to it, it's not terrible, but there's so many other good options out there that make middle finger flicking a knife very easy. This wouldn't be my first choice for a middle finger flicker. But if you like a flipper knife, I'd recommend this all day as a flipper. If you were never going to put the thumb stud on and just use the flipper, and you're okay with that thick edge, that's another thing. It's easy to forget about that thick edge, but because so many knives have much better edge than this, definitely good as a flipper. Something I would consider as a flipper, and it's a very solid build. For, you have the screws, which they do a really nice job of kind of having just one-way access screws, so it makes the lock bar side look kind of smooth. You just have kind of like, the circly areas there with no real access to put a bit in. You have that on this side. So I do like that you completely take just the show side off to get to the knife. Some knives, if you have like a free spinning pivot or something dumb like that, you might have to get to the main pivot on this side and then the other body screws on this side, or vice versa. I really like the fact that all of the disassembly is done on the show side. And whether it be the show side or the lock side, that doesn't really matter that much to me. I think this looks okay as is. If you flip them around, which you might be able to. I haven't tried that yet. You may be able to try that, but regardless, I really do think it looks good as is. Aesthetically, I think it's a great looking knife. Really love the floating backspacer here. That's a really nice touch. Really like the pocket clip on this guy. It works great. Kind of got the little drill hole there, which I could probably do without, but I'm not going to be too upset about that because a lot of people do use lanyards. But overall, the thoughts on this guy, from a knife from 2015, I can definitely see how it won Knife of the Year. It's very, very ahead of its time back in 2015. There was no knives like this. Now, when we're talking 2021, it's kind of just on par at best. Yeah, it is still one I would recommend. I would still recommend this knife because there's really no reason for me not to. As you can see, as I'm talking to you and fidgeting with this, I have gotten used to middle finger flicking it, but this was the hardest knife I've ever had to kind of get used to in terms of middle finger flicking, which is why I'd be much more of a proponent of just using the flipper tab on this guy, because the flipper is very smooth, it works very well, and it's really hard to fail. In terms of close, really easy shake shut close, pretty smooth overall. But yeah, one I would take a look at if you're looking for a knife under 3 inches with more of a premium feel and premium build, that's different and not quite the same as all the other stuff out there right now. This is one worth taking a look at. It's really overall a rather solid offering. I wish it had a thinner edge, and I wish the thumb stud worked better. But other than that, it is a pretty darn nice little knife. Let me guys know what you think of LionSteel in general. It's another one of those Italian manufacturers between LionSteel, Viper, MKM, and then there's one more that I can't think of right now. But there's 3 or 4 pretty big names over in Italy. This is one of them, and LionSteel seems to be doing pretty good things. Let me know what you think of this guy, if you've experienced, what you think of LionSteel in general, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and until the next one, I'm out.